really get real with one another in the sense of creating a space for dialogue and conversation, going back and forth, rather than just a sit and get style of presentation. So your questions answered, you can expect that to look like us dialoguing amongst each other and with the PEAR team. So again, I apologize. We should have moved this slide further ahead. But I am Katrina Tuggle and I use she, her pronouns, and I will dive deeper into the about me. But I wanted to pause and note that before I jumped into discussing the norms for the session. So the first one being, as we're entering this dialogue with one another, is to be humble and be willing to grapple with challenging ideas. We will not solve things overnight. And if we do not have an answer to a question, just know that we want to be authentic and real and true. And we're never going to show up to a space pretending like we have an answer that we might not have, but you can believe that we will get back to you. So just kind of sharing from our perspective of norms, where we're going to be coming from, of grappling with any challenging questions or ideas that you may bring forth, and then also really taking the time to be able to answer that clearly for you. Find your learning edge and push it. So again, this is the end of the day, so just please lean in to this conversation and dialogue we will have so that it's fruitful. And then really thinking of that frame of reference that we're approaching this conversation, thinking about our positionality within agency or the enterprise, and also our positionality once we are out of work and what we carry throughout, whether we are at work or in our personal life. So thinking of race, class, gender, sexuality, ability, and how it informs our perspectives and our reactions. And then accept that discomfort is necessary for growth. And I shared in the last session that discomfort is comfort growing. So again, it's important for us to get uncomfortable so that we can continue to grow, continue to be lifelong learners, and knowing that that learning is going to have profound impact in our personal as well as our professional life. And then also use defensive reaction as an entry point to build a deeper understanding. So really recognizing that when we do feel defensive, there's a lot of other feelings and lived experiences that put us in a position to armor up. And some of those can be shame or fear. So really working past that, even if you need to take a moment to journal something down or just take a moment to yourself before you lean back into the conversation, but not to run from it. So again, just take a moment to check in with how you're feeling, dig deeper, what's your body doing, so that you can continue to engage. And speak from your own experience without generalizing, and stay engaged and hold space for others. And the last, before we dive in further, is being willing to extend grace to others and ourselves as we speak and process out loud. So just take a moment and think through which one you are going to focus on today. We can just number them 1 through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and just drop in the chat 1 through 8 what you want to focus on our time today, or excuse me, this afternoon, as it will be a dialogue and we will be engaging with one another. Thank you. I see 5. Thank you. What are you going to focus on to center as we finish our last session today? 7, 6. Thank you. It's great to see some familiar faces here that have been with us throughout the day or for a few sessions. All right, 4 and 6. All right, I'm going to transition to the next slide, but feel free to keep dropping those in. I know I will have switched the slide, so I'll just leave it on for about 10 more seconds, and then I'm going to transition. Thank you for your participation and engagement. All right, another engaging and connecting activity is we're going to do 2 truths and a lie. So 2 of these are true about me, and 1 of them is a lie. So number 1, I can speak Japanese. Number 2, I have 2 daughters. And number 3, I grew up in apartments. And so I am going to drop in the chat which one do you think is a lie about me? You all can drop it. 3, I grew up in apartments. 2, that I have 2 daughters. They think that's a lie. Or maybe this is more the norm. So I'll just give it a pause. Okay, so you're trying to decide which one is a lie about Katrina Tuggle. 1, I can speak Japanese. 2, I have 2 daughters. We'll wait for a few more to roll in. 1, I can speak Japanese. All right. So you are correct if you thought that I could not speak Japanese. I do have a brother who does live in Tokyo, who's a computer programmer who does speak Japanese. He's been there for 12 years and he's my best friend. I do have 2 daughters, 5 and 7, and I did grow up in apartments. So this is an activity that you can take back to your group, whether you do it in person or virtually. It's just a fun way to kind of get to know your team members a little bit better. And with that, I am going to transition to our introductions. So this here is our pro equity team. There is 6 of us, and I will introduce myself one more time. I'm Katrina Tuggle. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a pro equity consultant. A fun fact about me is that I absolutely love the Goodwill. I love it so much that I know all of their days that they have extra discounts. I love shopping for unique items or things that I can do something cool with, and most definitely love shopping for things for my daughters and finding really great treasures there. And I will pass it to Rueben.
Hello, folks. My name is Rueben Otero. Pronouns are they, them, theirs, and ma'am. My fun fact, I'm a pro equity consultant along with Katrina. And my fun fact is that I like to sew my own clothing. So if you come up and see me in person sometime, it's not an insult if you ask me who sews, if I sew my own clothes, because that would just make me really happy and really excited. And I'll go just pass it off to B.
Hey y'all, I'm B Hill, pronouns they, them. I'm the Pro Equity Consultant Manager currently. And to share a fun facts about me, I am a classic car enthusiast. So drop in the chat if you love classic cars. And usually they date classic cars 20 years and beyond, but drop what you feel free to drop of classic cars. And also I'm a professional DJ. So my genre is funk, soul, classic, hip hop, and R&B. So we're going through the 70s through the 90s, and that's what I DJ. So great to see you all. Glad you're in space with us. Nice to meet everyone.
Great, thank you. And then our other 3 consultants are right below B is Catherine. And then next to Catherine is Kalima. Below Kalima is, of course, Rueben. And then to the left is Jasmine. We all come with many giftings and talents, and we are all very passionate about this work. And we look forward to continuing to be able to partner, learn, and walk alongside you as we lead this work to ensure that every Washingtonian has access, is met with dignity and respect, and has positive life outcomes. So for the agenda, we went over the norms and just modeled a quick icebreaker, introduced our PEAR team. And so next we're going to move into a recap, and then we are going to open it up for some real talk. And actually, it looks like we are moving right into our real talk now, because we did debrief over lunch and we decided that we really wanted to make the space and the time to dialogue. And so I will turn it over to who has that next to frame that out for our audience.
I'll jump in there. Thank you, Katrina. So we want to have real talk in this session. We want to talk about, particularly if you're a community member, share, if you are a state employee, share about what challenges do you feel in your agency to implementing, embedding, and sustaining a PEAR ecosystem. So we really just want to have real talk around our challenges, obstacles, but also we want to come solutions oriented. So also with the challenge, what do you feel like the solution to that challenge or obstacle should be? So we want you to share that as well. And we understand at the basis in the framework to be anti-racist, to be equity-centered, is to be in action. So how can we as a state government be in action? So you can drop it in the chat. We invite you to come on mic. And we will let the first person participate in a brave space to come on mic, and then we can raise hands and we can call on folks, but also in chat, we'll toggle back and forth. But this is really a discussion between us of like, what do we need to do to build a PEAR ecosystem in the state of Washington? So gonna give you time to process through that and contribute. And also, if you're ready to come on mic, come on mic. And also raise your hand or drop it in the chat for giving space for you to kind of process through that.
I have something.
Yes, please.
I work at one of the 24/7 facilities for DDA, and I'm having issues. We have a EDAI committee of one, which is me. So I just want it seems to me that the people that need to be at the table for the difficult conversations are the ones that are not, and it needs to be more than a checkbox on their annual eval. And I love all of the EDAI trainings and opportunities that I get to go to, but sometimes I think people forget about Eastern Washington and the 24/7 facilities, and kind of just, we're our own animal over here. And so I've had some difficult conversations with coworkers, but it's still, it's mind-boggling the difference sometimes. And being told that racism isn't real and doesn't exist and things like that from coworkers is just disheartening. So I don't have the solution, but I just wanted to put it out there that I love the work we're doing. I love the training opportunities. I love when headquarters does show up here and show their faces, but I kind of just wanted to say, don't forget about us too, because it's hard in the trenches and not working from home. And we came through the last 3.5 years by the skin of our teeth. and it was just a matter of survival. And now it's like, okay, let's do this good work, but it's really, really difficult to get buy-in. And I don't know. I don't have a good solution yet, so I don't know.
So first, I want to acknowledge that it is so real. Thank you very much for kicking us off and getting that ball rolling. I want to remind us before we get too far into it, can we please, when we begin speaking, say our names and pronouns, and if we could keep the acronyms to a minimum, just, not all of us know everything there is to know about the state. And all of the acronyms, and that was absolutely not calling out. It's just a reminder for folks moving forward. But thank you so much for that.
And my name's Morgan, and I use she, her pronouns.
Thank you, Morgan.
And I also wanted to say too, that if there's individuals on the call who also want to provide feedback or have connecting aspects to what people are sharing, please add on. We don't want this to be a one-way conversation where it's strictly just between Office of Equity, Pro Equity Consultants and you. Again, there will be elements of that in this conversation, but if there's something that you have to add, please either drop it in the chat or unmute.
I'm Samantha Hill. I use she, her pronouns. Kind of to the same, along the same lines that the last person just said. I'm a supervisor of 5, and it seems like there's a lot of pushback when it comes to classes. There's so much to learn, is the way I feel about it. There's just a tremendous amount that everybody needs to learn. But when you have individuals that they don't see themselves as the problem, so then they don't feel like they need to go to these classes, and I hear stuff back like it's just a bunch of noise, and once the governor, which is a huge one that they say, and once the governor is replaced, then this is all going to change and nobody's going to have to go to these classes anymore, which is frightening. That was the case. So it's really hard to try to convince people, and I guess we can't really convince them. We can just do our part, but it gets really frustrating. I love going to these classes. I love learning stuff, but it's really hard when it doesn't seem like everybody else does. And I get confused of, why people wouldn't see that this is very important. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate the vulnerability and each of you sharing your positionality and your passion for this work, and also expressing how hard that it has been. And I won't try to pretend that I know what a lived experience is on the east side of the mountains. My only frame of reference would be attending Wazoo for my undergrad, and that was by happenstance, being first gen, and just the culture shock as a white person for me being there. And so I don't have an answer for you, and I want to be honest about that. But I also want to uplift, the power it is, whether it's been through your networking sessions today, whether it's from hearing from one another within this meeting, of having a person that you can lean into, whether it's in a different agency, if it doesn't exist from within your own. And I know 2 people shared back to back. And again, that's not a long-term solution when you're trying to disrupt kind of an ecosystem of its own on the east side of the mountains. So that's one suggestion. if you're open to that, and I should have asked that before I began speaking. And another suggestion, if you're open, again, not to solve, but it's something that I shared in a previous session, is that a lot of times, and I'll share this, is that my background is public education, K through 12, from a systems level of thinking of being a community partner all the way up to becoming an administrator and everything in between as a teacher. And I would say that one piece that I can connect to is this idea of like it being a standalone DEI or equity or racial justice being the standalone piece. And one way that I enhanced that in a leadership position was connecting it to existing professional development that was required for all, connecting it to RCW's policy, elevating any district policy, and then having the pieces that had to play out in day-to-day classroom operations or building structures. And so again, I don't want to minimize the question of saying there's a one-size-fits-all approach or this will be a solution. But I think oftentimes when folks who may not be as open or have a lot of armor up when it comes to racial justice and equity work, is finding those opportunities to embed it into existing systems that everyone has to come in contact with. And it's not sitting in a diversity, equity, inclusion, or book club, but thinking, what are those small systems or spaces within the workday where this could be added to show the meaning of the day-to-day outcomes. The other piece that I was thinking through too, in my work with white people and doing the work around racial justice and equity, is starting from this frame of reference of identifying the intersectionality and identities and how that forms your frame of reference. It's often that I've found the experience, it's an entry point to say, like, the neighborhoods I grew up in, the churches I attended, the schools I went to, the curriculum I was taught, who was the curriculum I was taught, showcasing allows an individual to kind of decontextualize themselves and creates that opening. So thank you for listening. I talked far longer than I intended to, but one is trying to find allies who believe in that work, whether it's in your organization or if you found somebody through the conference. Two, connecting it to existing systems and structures so it doesn't feel like PEAR is a standalone or DEI work is a standalone, and being strategic that way. And then number three, really doing an entry point for individuals of really decontextualizing their identity, their frame of reference, and intersectionality. And then I would say four, lastly, is not that we could solve it or lead it for you, but please reach out to us PEAR consultants so we can strategize and support and be thought partners. And I'm going to open it up to the audience or to my colleagues to see what you would add on. Or we can move on too. And we also have, we are blessed to have another team member with us who isn't on screen right now, but they are from the East Side and they are going to add on.
Thanks so much. Hope everyone can hear me. I think I just want Okay. Can everyone hear me now? Okay, so my name is Angela Vera Webster. I she, her, and I'm one of the Community Advisory Board Program Managers for the Office of Equity. I think just what I would like to add my voice to the chorus of folks in the chat and who've spoken up about Eastern Washington and about what it is that makes it tough on this side of the state. I think I want to start with the economy. I will say austerity is just a way of life here. And the values of austerity are just going to shape what kind of solutions the community is going or willing to accept. And for the most part, I'd say that a lot of the economic flag that occurs on this side of the state is just simply not captured by the data. The data doesn't tell the full story, and the resources don't get to where they need to be. It also tends to be, depending on where you go, a little bit more perhaps ethnically or racially homogenous, but the governing structures don't necessarily reflect the entire community. And I think there's much more of a policing mentality there of, with social control is the way that we manage work on this side of the state versus belonging, empowerment, and things like pro-equity, anti-racism are simply seen as dangerous, terrifying, white genocide beliefs that need to be stamped out. So the messaging that works on the western side of the state does not always work in central or the eastern side of the state. All that said, it does tend to run more conservative. However, there are still quite a few conservative folks who are willing to be pro-equity and anti-racist. So the notion that someone who is conservative is not capable of working with us is actually, I think, a myth. But it is a matter of how it is that we build these conversations, I think, in a way that bridges rather than divides, and it's incredibly difficult. The other one, of course, is while we do have to meet people where they are, I think it's hard to know how it is we can hold them accountable, hold people accountable so they don't stay where they're at. And so the biggest thing I would say is that it would be nice for more folks on the western side of the state to partner with us so that we have more support to do the things that we would like to do, because there's people doing some down work here. We have a robust activist and organizing community all throughout the state working on all sorts of things. So I realize I'm rambling a lot, but I think when we say, it's tough on this side of the state, it is. But there is so much that goes into what makes it challenging, but they're not insurmountable challenges. We just need more resources, more human-centered data, much more partnership where the West is not, I think, speaking down to us as though we're dumb, as though we're not, in the struggle. And that as though we don't have something more to offer, because we live in our communities and we know what we need. And it would be nice to, I think, be heard and then give us the opportunity to lead that work with, of course, the rest of the state's support. So I think that's just kind of what I wanted to add. And really, I think I appreciate those folks who spoke up because it does need to be said.
Thank you so much, Angela. Really appreciate you being able to speak. Right. Some more notes in the chat. Secondary traumatic stress and burnout are extremely common experience at DSHS, particularly for those directly serving customers. All managers need to be able to recognize indicators of burnout and STS and provide support to their teams that allows them to recharge, de-escalate, and move on to serve others again without passing their stress on to their coworkers or customers. Absolutely. Another, in my experience, people who believe that there is no problem lack lived experience and do not see a problem. One thing we could do is share about our experiences with our coworkers or leadership to increase awareness. You are not rambling, Angela. You are speaking truth. Absolutely. Speaking as someone who currently facilitates REDI, Respect, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Orientation for CSD employees, I have seen some really great engagement from participants who are joining us from Eastern Washington. if you'd be willing, Nikolai, and please correct me if I pronounced your name wrong, to share what some of those examples have been or what you have seen, just as a way to support the conversation for those on the call from Eastern Washington. And again, you can drop that in the chat or come off mic. Thank you so much.
So to clarify, CSD stands for Community Services Division. So it's one of the many divisions of DSHS. Our division handles most cash and basic food applications, so like SNAP and TANF and stuff like that. And then also a select group of classic medical programs. So essentially we're providing financial services to our most vulnerable populations. The Ready orientation has been going on pretty much since 2013, but it has changed quite a lot. And right now what it is, it's a one-day orientation. It is mostly geared towards new employees, but we have had a lot of seasoned employees at various different levels of the organization join us as well, which is great. Sometimes people just never had the opportunity to attend in prior years, or they just wanted a refresher. And it is kind of a 101 level orientation where we introduce what each of those concepts is: respect, equity, diversity, inclusion. We go into things like what is secondary traumatic stress, how to recognize it, how to manage it. We go into things like microaggressions. What are the impacts of microaggressions and how do we identify those? And so like I said, it's a very 101 level orientation, but we've seen some really great engagement no matter where people are in the state. Doesn't seem to matter where they're joining us from. When they come into the space and they're willing to participate, they've been contributing a lot of really great life experiences that they share, which of course we don't share outside the orientation. Or they're just providing really good insights when we ask questions about, like, for example, when we're talking about a case study with our fraud early detection team, we call that FRED, about how they were receiving like a bunch of referrals that were just completely unfounded and not following procedure, how unconscious bias was showing up there, and how we could try to check that and also recognize what are the impacts to the community when one of these investigations happens for no good reason. So just examples of how we can apply that to our daily work. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, thank you for providing that context and examples and details of the application of it. I appreciate that. Okay. Other questions or comments or connections?
Yeah, what I want to pick up on in the chat about, I'm not sure which of the session hosts wrote this, but I explained in oh, sorry, this is Ruben, they, them. I explained in a different session, only in the chat, so I'll explain it here again, about I sort of view folks ready to do DEI work on a point scale, like we do student education for assessing students. 1 being not meeting standard, 2 approaching standard, 3 meeting standard, and 4 exceeding. And really how, when I talk about going with the goers, I'm talking about the 2s, the 3s, the 4s. Those are the folks who are near on board or already on board. And I think when I think about the 1s, capturing them when they're at the right time. A 1 can become a 2 at any moment. Somebody who's not ready to engage in DEI work, which is the work of increasing care and decreasing policing, they need the right impetus. If you are called to work with the ones of the DEI world, that's fine and dandy. But for some of us in some of our positions, we can't wait around for the ones to get on it. And you got to go with who you have. But finding that moment where a 1 flips over is so important because it's a chance. But 1s are not going to change unless they want to. It's not like a 2 who's heard a few things, who maybe has somebody in their family with a marginalized identity, or is now becoming marginalized themselves. I think a lot of folks with the COVID-19 pandemic are dealing with long COVID, folks who previously would consider themselves entirely able-bodied. In the abled community, they're now dealing with effects of long COVID, which can be very debilitating. And that might be the impetus that takes them from a 1 to a 2. They might get their eyes opened by a family member. Maybe somebody joins the family who is in a marginalized identity. It's not, I don't find it healthy for myself to wait around for the 1s, but I am looking for the opportunity for the 1s to come along with me. My bus has plenty of seats on it, and it's theirs if they want it, but they gotta want it. And I think that's the tough thing that I find with DEI work. And especially I get when y'all are sharing about the East Side, now there are different challenges there. You might have more 1s at work. And it's a big drain. It's tough, especially when you feel so strongly about it and you understand what the work is about.
So we have 2 pieces about leadership in the chat. I'm going to read both of them, and maybe our team or anyone on the call can add on and create dialogue around this. So 1 is, it would be wonderful if administrators and supervisors were to be required some kind of a refresher every 2 years as things have changed and evolved. And then to add on to a similar thread is, I believe one of the greatest obstacles to becoming PEAR agencies is leadership will have to acknowledge discrimination happened during individual interactions. However, when acknowledging discrimination, it opens agencies to lawsuits. So the response is to deny and minimize the discriminatory actions and blame the person that brought the concern. It's easy to say issues exist on a macro level. Moving to the micro acknowledgement is the obstacle. Thank you, Lena. Thank you. Getting snaps over here on this side. So I'm going to open it up to our team as well as to our larger team of 35 participants to talk around either directly to what I read out loud from both participants or just anything else you want to add in regards to that.
I would love to.
Welcome, Ruben. Welcome.
Lena, thank you so much for sharing this because you're talking about one of my favorite things, which is accountability and accurate assessments of risk. We have so many agency heads occupy these privileged identities. And when we're looking at these things, these harms that have occurred, very many of these agencies do deserve litigation. They do deserve to repair the damage that they have wrought upon individuals and groups of people. And that sounds scary for them.
Mm.
But when we look at our society, there are so few checks and balances for folks that are doing harms. And I would question each one of those folks who were hesitant in leadership positions to acknowledge them about what their actual risk is. Because of the privileged identities that they hold, they're likely to incur zero or very minimal consequences for their actions. And that is something that really must be acknowledged, that these folks are not experiencing actual risk or actual harm by acknowledging that something happened. And I know that we're talking about sometimes small agencies who don't have the budget to afford to be sued.
Mm.
And I will say to this folks on the call, and you can bring this out, if you can't afford to be sued for harming someone, then maybe we should just stop harming people.
Say that.
So I love that this is brought up, and it just makes me also remind us that we are all leaders, and when we band together, when we utilize our union resources, and I know that unions are not perfect and they fill those imperfect people, but when we band our voices together, we can get these people to acknowledge harms and remove themselves from leadership positions where they are doing active harm. It requires our vigilance and our desire to work together, but people power happens when we combine our voices to do what we believe is right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes me think too of shared powers creation of the 7 pit stops, and the last one being the belonging. And it also makes me reflect on systemic racism and racism in general, and how it's created systems that continue to perpetuate and normalize that that's just what happens here, and minimizes people to such a small level that one, they don't feel as they can bring their true selves to work, and two, that it normalizes accepting micro, macro, and just straight up racism that takes place in a work day, and how that then impacts your ability to feel safe and secure, and not have any resolution or restitution happen for you. It's gaslighting, and it's wrong, and it has to change. And so when I think of the foundational pieces of how we change Washington, it's disrupting and blowing up what has existed, in a sense of what keeps these systems perpetuating, what continues to allow people to say, I didn't know, or I'm sorry you feel that way, or I'm sorry that happened to you, or did that happen to you, or are you telling the truth? Is that how you really experienced it? And it can feel very massive, and it can feel very overwhelming, but strength that I try to pull upon, and sorry, it makes me like emotional, is knowing that this Office of Equity exists, and that by the end of this year, we'll have hopefully close up to 35 people, and that we hear you all, and we believe you. And we know that it impacts our employees and has impacted employees. And we know that it has impacted our customers and clients. And we want to say no more. And so as we started the session, we don't have all of the answers, and we don't have all of the solutions, but what we do have is passion and a team of folks that knows what's up and is going to get down to work with y'all. And so again, I don't say any of that to have a solution, but I do say that, again, just want to state, I hear you and I believe you.
I see in the chat, thank you for your passion and partnership. I would like to continue, what obstacles, challenges are you facing in your agency? Because it helps us know as the Office of Equity to know what we should center in on and we should elevate. Like, what obstacle and challenges are you facing? Drop that in the chat. You can come on mic, say that to us as well, because this is a dialogue, right? We have to be in relationship, in community with each other to talk through this, to be able to co-develop solutions. It's about co-developing solutions. None of us sit here as we are the expert. No, if that was the case, this would have been solved. None of us are the expert. So we want to get a touch point, that pulse of what are you facing in your agencies, challenges that you're facing. So drop it in the chat, come on the mic, and let's express it. And we're not saying we're just going to pop up and have the answer. No, we all have to process through. We all have to think through and develop how we can be collaborators together to develop the answers. So we just want to keep developing this space. This is a brave space. We're creating brave space to talk through how we all can be in shared responsibility to create the solutions that we see. And so I'm going to hush for a minute, and if anybody wants to pop on and talk about it, and also we'll monitor the chat as well of like, what's on your mind?
This is Samantha, she, her pronouns. Just wanted to say, first of all, I am from Olympia, Washington, so I'm not from Eastern Washington. I was the one who was talking second earlier today about pushback that I get from a lot of the individuals. So it's still happening even in Western Washington. But somebody had said, and I can't find it now in the chat because there's so many good ones to read, but they had suggested possibly sharing some lived experiences that may help to make, bring other people online. Kind of like was Rueben was saying, is maybe sharing some experiences would make them go from, a 1 to a 2 or so forth, But I think that was a wonderful suggestion, and I have a lot of shared experiences to share, lived experiences. I lived in Louisiana for 10 years, and both of my children are biracial. And so I've seen so much traumatic things happen, and probably still not half as many as the majority of the individuals have seen. But yet I think sharing that may make even the individuals who think they're not part of the problem to maybe possibly realize that, there is a problem, and until people get into action, it's not going to be solved. So, I don't know that I have a question, but I just wanted to say thank you to whoever added that out there, and all of this is really helping, I think.
Thank you for sharing that. Also, creating space. And also, I want us to recognize we have spaces of nobody's speaking, nobody's talking. It's okay because we are allowed our space to process and think through. That is a space of being intentional and just not being reactive, which when we can be reactive, it can cause harm for folks. Let's be intentional. We are all good with space where there's silence and we're thinking through. So again, drop it in the chat and also come on mic. Good with silence because silence is it is okay, y'all. It is okay. So gonna open up space again for somebody else to share. And so drop it in the chat or just come on mic. And it's B again, and I will just remind us of the prompt. What challenges do you feel you or within your agency that you're feeling? What are your thoughts about you're feeling challenges of developing and sustaining a pro-equity and anti-racism pair ecosystem? What are you experiencing? What are you observing? And also, this is a brave space. So this is, as us, as pair consultants, as a consultants from the Office of Equity, this is our touch point to understand what resources and guidance we can develop from this interaction with you. Is not to go reporting back to that. So just as you feel free to share what challenges, obstacles, or even come in with, I think I have solutions. Here are my thoughts on solutions of overcoming obstacles, of developing how we can build a pair ecosystem. So we're just going to continue to give space for you to share.
Hi everyone. My name is Otilia and I work with the Department of Children, Youth and Families. My pronouns are she, her. Ever since I started with my team, going on a year and a half, I've been encouraged by my supervisor to initiate and to bring forth a lot of racial equity, social justice topics and conversations with our team. I work virtually, so we do a lot of group chats and we have monthly unit meetings. And it's been difficult to do this work, not because I don't feel passionate about it. It comes easy to me to start these, they could be difficult conversations to have, but a lot of the times I feel like my work, my voice falls on deaf ears. And it's been difficult to continue to move forward with this when there's no feedback from the team. So I just kind of want to put that out there. I've been kind of struggling with that. There's only so much one can do. I'm continuing my knowledge. I like to share the knowledge, but it's up to each individual's responsibility. You have the knowledge. What are you going to do with it now? Right? So I've just been struggling with that. And excuse my voice, I'm also struggling with allergies.
Oh, you're great, Atia. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think when you mentioned that, it makes me think about how the work from home shift for a lot of state workers has been a blessing, especially those in marginalized identities. For some of us, our bullies were at work, or folks who just made us uncomfortable were at work. But you also do lose out on that in-person time, getting to exchange ideas, and like you're mentioning DEI work, having the chance to have those exchanges. I'd be curious, and this is not to just come off as blamey or anything, but do you participate in any of the business resource groups?
I am limited to the amount of groups I can participate in due to, as in I'm still training. So there are a few groups that I am participating in, but I am not participating in that one.
Gotcha. Yeah, I totally get that for folks. That it's tough to have the time and the availability to go out to the business resource groups, depending on your schedule and like how your boss feels about it.
So I do try to, so I participate in the BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color gatherings where we have conversations, and I try to bring those conversations over to our group. And I'm also a member of the Latino Network. And any information I learned there, I like to bring over. But it's just, then the engagement is really not there. And I understand that we're all in different learning periods. We can be learning the true definition of what equity is, right? Some people are starting there, and I totally understand that. But it's just been really hard to just, it feels like it's a one-sided conversation. So I've just been struggling with getting a little bit more from my team. But I do want to say that I'm definitely not going to give up. Sometimes, sometimes doing this work, it feels like you can be speaking to the wind, but as long as I can speak, I'll speak.
Exactly. And I hope that during the convening, there are also opportunities for you to connect with folks. We definitely want the convening to have been not only a sharing out process, but a gathering in process where folks can have the chance to, make those connections. Like you say, if it's difficult at your agency, it's okay to be making those connections with other state workers who you can be in partnership in the work with.
I'd like to jump in.
Please.
It's Dania, she, her pronouns. I'd like to back up Atilia, right? So I just wanted to emphasize the importance of like every individual in this conversation and the impact that we can make, to raise awareness and educate others. As I mentioned before in the chat, by sharing our stories, because I previously facilitated DEI trainings at one of the state agencies, and from my experience, I learned that some folks, they just haven't had experiences that would help them understand what some other people might be experiencing or feeling or traumatized with, and not being aware of that, they might have this, their worldview is different, and they don't see this as a problem. And when they have somebody that they know telling them, here is my experience, here is what I lived through, that might influence their awareness and change their mind and make them an ally. So one point that I wanted to make is also coming from my experience that the question of like, you are either with us, like, you are either DI or you're not with us, is also a difficult question, because we don't want to other and, people that are not there yet. And we want them to, we want to make them belong, right? We want them to feel belong. We don't say that you don't, you're not there yet, you don't understand, so you cannot, so you are not with us, right? So we should find ways to help them get there. And also, another thing is also that would help, a lot of us who get frustrated to get in peace that some people won't be there. They won't get there. And we should understand that there is, everyone has free will, and somebody will get there. They want to get there, somebody won't. So and that doesn't mean that we, quit. We keep doing what we do. We keep spreading awareness. So I think that just, on a positive note, seeing what we are doing good, sharing, good practices, that's something that we could also do. And that we could do, like, between the agencies, between co-workers. If you're just somebody working in an agency, or you're in a leadership position, just spread your awareness, spread your values, and that's something that's gonna help all of us, even like in the area of your own influence.
So if one of my team members can just share from the chat the contributions that our statewide collaborators have shared, let's do that. And also, we still will be taking in, if you want to get on mic, contribute and talk through. Like, we have had some very fruitful contributions, and we are taking that to heart. But also, if one of my team members want to jump in on the chat and share what they've seen through the chat as well. So I'll jump in with Mary, reading from the chat. Hello, my name is Mary, pronouns her, she. I've been simply busy working daily. Found where the PEAR info was on our SharePoint today and read a bit about the info there. I'm now ready to learn more about team and my info, my agency, and how far they've come. I do feel a nice working environment in my virtual work days when it comes to acceptance within a diverse community. People are kind, accepting, working together harmoniously, and respectful. Loads of info in the past couple of days have been so encouraging, inspirational, and I am looking forward to learning more and implementing what I've learned so far. So this is a space of igniting into action. What Mary has shown us is igniting into action in recognizing where we have the spaces of disparity, injustice, where we need to have the spaces of breaking down and also disrupting and dismantling and being inspired to do so. But we can't just be inspired. We have to have continuous action, right? The work of anti-racism and pro-equity requires us to be in a space of continuous action. So don't just let inspiration be it. You have to continue to move forward. This work is hard. It's uncomfortable. We have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. However, when we build our skill set, when we build our knowledge, we have to continuously move forward to do the work of anti-racism and being pro-equity. It's not additional work. Particularly if you are a state employee, it's not additional work. It is the work, your work. When you show up to work each and every day, you show up to work as an anti-racist. You show up to work each day pro-equity centered. And when you develop your skill set and your knowledge in that, all that you do will be centered in anti-racism and pro-equity. So thank you, Mary, for being vulnerable and sharing with us that. And so I see some new messages coming through, but also let's encourage folks, if you want to come and speak, just share with us your reflections of this session. So I'm going to hush for a minute and going to give some space for folks to share.
I'll go ahead and share what Nikolai has shared in the chat because it's something that I like to recommend to folks as well. So Nikolai shares another way to approach team-based discussions on equity, diversity, access, inclusion, and belonging is to talk about continuous improvement. Do a quick walkthrough of common process or policy from a customer's perspective. Imagine how one customer may experience that process or policy different than another customer. For example, walk through the process, imagining that you are a customer with sight impairment, a customer who has limited English proficiency, a customer who has no idea what different state agencies do, etc. If you find that there are disparities in the experience based on which customer is interacting with your process or policy, ask how the disparities could be eliminated. In my work with the Rainbow Alliance Inclusion Network Business Resource Group, I am one of the co-chairs of the Best Practices Subcommittee, and we're currently we have launched our guide for transitioning in the workplace for our trans and non-binary employees. And one of the things that we've just been recommending is that folks do audits of their processes. There are, just like Nikolai is describing, these processes, by and large, were designed for cis, white, heterosexual, nuclear familied people. They aren't designed for the entire range of diversity that exists in Washington state. So whether it's putting on a trans lens or a lens of somebody who has limited English proficiency, like Nikolai mentions, or any other thing, going through your processes and looking at seeing, okay, this is how the process is set up, this is who it currently serves, is so important and can help open your eyes to the way that other folks are experiencing your products, the way that they interact with your agency.
So as we end this session, you know, we're slated to end at 4:30. In chat, or also if you want to have that brave space of going on mic and talking to us, let's consider ultimately how we end this, right? Really, this comes from personal impact. It's you, your willingness, your personal impact to this work in your position, in your job, what you were hired to do, and also in our own personal journeys of how we can show up in space, but reflecting on personal impact in either of those spaces. So either in the chat, let's just flood the chat, and also as we come to our conclusion of this session, if you want to jump on mic in that brave space, consider the purpose of anti-racism, pro-equity work. Why is this work important to you and the larger community? Why is it important to you? Why is it important to the larger community? Flood the chat with your thoughts. Don't feel you have to say one thing, say many things. Think of things, process through. I'm a processor. I gotta think through things before I respond. That's how I operate. So through chat, or also come on mic, let us know, because we want to end this, because it's bigger, and the totality of this is your willingness and your personal impact, because whatever position you're in, you are a leader. You are a leader in the work of pro-equity and anti-racism. No matter your position in your job, you still are a leader. So why is this work important to you in the larger community? But the chat, come talk to us, and we're going to end the session on that. Like, let's reflect on your personal impact. Let us know. Let's go. We're seeing, we don't want the status quo to continue. I see that. I see that. We don't want the status quo to continue. We don't want the injustice to continue. We want to dismantle and disrupt. We don't want what has been existing to continue. Thank you for that. Also, come on, Mike. I'm gonna hush. Come on, Mike, and you can say it for yourself.
As folks are gathering their thoughts, I want to just take a quick moment to thank our ASL interpreters for their hard work. We've had so many wonderful folks today come through, and we really just appreciate how much y'all were out here. Pro bono means for free, y'all. They did it. They are doing it for us, and thank you so much.
Also, I see you have to be the change that you want in this world. You got to model the change. You have to model the change that you want to see. It's in action. We're not changing anything by being complicit. We have to be in action. And if you're joining us and you can't see the chat, we see folks just coming, really flooding the chat and just coming through the chat of their reasons of being engaged and being committed to creating a world where we live in pro-equity and anti-racism. So I appreciate each and every one of you for contributing your thoughts of what this world would exist as is being embedded in centering anti-racism and pro-equity. Thank you so much. We see so many of you flooded in chat. Thank you.
And then Rook has something to share as well.
Hey y'all, this is Rook. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm going to take my headphones off because I could hear myself double. I've moderated 3 of these sessions today, and I just wanted to say thank you all for your graciousness and your kindness today and your participation, and just to go take care of yourself after the session. It's been a long day. If you've been here with us all day, and your body is needing some of that rest and some of that care. So I hope you all take care of yourselves tonight, and really let all of what's happening sink in. And I just wanted to say thank you for letting me be your moderator. I know you didn't know I was here or my name, but thank you all for all of your patience and kindness today. So bye.
And a shout out and a thank you to all our moderators out here today. And again, we thank you for all of your time and contributions and really taking the time and the space to sit in silence and reflect. I think oftentimes this world moves so fast. And so to have the moment to sit and reflect, to come on mic or drop in the chat or just to sit and reflect in the space and place and location you are, all answers are right for that time of reflection. And so we are grateful. And I thank you.
All right, y'all, I think that's our time together. Thank you so much for your contributions. Thank you so much for being in space and your graciousness as everybody has expressed. Let us know what you took away from this, whether it's here in the chat or hit me up, b.hill@equity.wa.gov and let me know. Appreciate each and every one of y'all for joining us today. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.